Hi, folks. How you doing? It's Mitch at Hard Intentions YouTube channel. Just have a clothing line at hardintentions.com. How you doing? Um, I've done a lot of videos talking about guys that think they run yards and all that kind of stuff. And don't get me wrong, there were some pretty ignorant things going on at some of the yards that were ran by guys that really were unqualified to do it. And it was usually guys that were on drugs and so on and so forth. And they want to get in the mix. But occasionally you would have guys that didn't use, they would do it for all the right reasons. And of course, back then, none of the yards I was on, I really believe that anyone had the keys from anyone in the back. It was just kind of a thing where they stepped up and said they would do it. And guys in the yard, nobody really wants to do it. So they're kind of like, okay. And then people keep an eye on them, see how they're doing, what the drug debt situation is on the yard with other races, even if you don't use. Because the higher it goes, the worse the yard's being run and the more jeopardy you are of being involved in a riot for someone else's problem. So guys that run the yards now, I'm sure whatever they're doing, I'm sure they try to keep things at an acceptable level for all people. But before I got out of prison, most of the guys had not been let out of the shoe yet. So I don't know, how to compare that to now, because I left 5 years ago. But there were guys that ran the yards right, gave positive encouragement to young guys on their first term, and they did a good job. They pull guys up when they got in debt and all that shit. But you might have guys, and people ask me about putting in work and stuff. So if you're smart, you see some guy that's he's a student, he's a clerk. Are you going to force that guy to go 2-on-1 somebody or stab somebody, right? So I don't think everybody has to worry about putting in work. There's plenty of guys that want to do it and raise their hand to do it, or they talk themselves into doing it by flapping their mouth in the yard or whatever, or they're in debt. But there were guys when I was in the pen, especially in the 80s, early 90s, about the mid 90s. They were smart guys. They were guys who went to college, guys been in the military, guys know how to run stuff, but they weren't really criminal dudes. They got involved with something, got in trouble, usually murders. They were smart. So they would get jobs in the program office. They would get jobs at the work change office where you go to get your jobs. They would get a job as a clerk in the bed housing unit clerk, bed moves, right? And so, when people say they had control of all the clerks, job assignment clerks. I don't think it was a controlled thing, but I think guys that were smart were allowed to get those jobs because guys like me, I'm not a clerk. I can barely know how to turn this computer on and and do these videos. My phone still gives me trouble, and I get locked out of Facebook. I can't figure out how to get back. But they had guys in there that were extremely qualified, and they would get jobs at places where people needed them. And if I needed to sell, if I wanted to move from one cell to another, I would go down and talk to the housing unit clerk, give him a carton of cigarettes or a cap of weed, and you get a cell move. If you wanted a job in a certain area, it depends what the job was. If you wanted to go into the kitchen, be one thing. If you wanted to go, plant operations, maintenance area, it's another. I don't know. I never had to buy a job, but there are clerks there that used to be able to get you assigned to certain jobs without going through all the job change paperwork, right? I mean, to get a job change, you have to go to your current supervisor and get him to release you, and then go to the other supervisor and get him to accept you, and then go to the assignment office and hope they process it and not tell you that you get it signed by this guy, then you go to this guy and he says, that other guy has to accept you before I sign it. Big runaround game, right? Because they really don't want you to get a job change. So it was a lot easier to go give a clerk a carton of cigarettes to get that job. And so those guys were putting in work too. That was, to me, a lot more valuable than, stabbing some guy in the yard over fucking $20 drug debt, because those guys made the prison happen. They made it function. The clerk in the hobby shop processed all your orders. There's hardly no hobby anymore. And, I got good jobs through clerks. My cellie hooked me up with the diet kitchen clerk in CMF. And well, he was actually a food manager's clerk, and his office was connected to the diet kitchen. I could walk in his office, go to the diet kitchen, get a tray, whatever I wanted, and then split. But Randy, he ran the kitchen. He was a food manager's clerk. The food manager was an alcoholic, an Army veteran. My friend was an Army veteran, very smart, college educated. So he let him run the kitchen. I mean, I went in there and he was on the phone talking to vendors. Okay, blah, 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 blah. And, making deals with vendors for the prison to get food. And I remember they used to get Crystal chocolate milk. I think it was like 3 cents a carton. And this is in '87. We got chocolate milk every Friday for dinner. For 3 cents a carton, it's like a half pint. And he was on the phone with Prison Industry Authority. And they were saying, how come you're buying milk from Crystal? We make milk. They process milk. They got cows in Tracy. They had milk processing in Corcoran. Industry. When they say prison industry, they mean industry. Anyway, we make chocolate milk. And Randy goes, well, you charge 5 cents a carton for your milk. He's on the phone talking to a state employee who thinks he's the food manager. And he goes, you charge 5 cents a carton for your milk. And we get it from Crystal for 3. And and he goes, well, I guess, I couldn't hear the other side of the phone, but he goes, I guess we just won't be having chocolate milk anymore. And that was the end of that, because prison industry wanted to take over our milk. But you also had clerks that could get paperwork on guys. You had clerks that could do basically whatever. And so those guys are putting in work as well, So I guess the point of that is, I had someone call me and tell me they were getting ready to go do a prison sentence, possibly a life sentence. They were getting ready to go to court. They've been out on bail, never been to prison. It's like, I'm not a tough guy. What can I expect? So, during the conversation, it was like, what if guys run up on me for this, that, and the other? And so basically, you get in where you fit in, right? Once I wised up, I fit in with learning plumbing, learning milling cabinet, working, developing my art skills, and advancing in the things that I was interested in. You can go in there and look them in the eye, chin up, chest out, right? Look people in the eye, be straight with them, and you'll be all right. There's guys on the yard that run it that are going to recognize it, but you might get asked to do a favor somewhere. It's like if you're one of these clerks, which they've done away with. Now it's all secretaries from the street. Inmates don't have a lot of access to files anymore. But, if you're facing that way, Don't have no fear, man, because it's going to be rough, but you get through it, and you just have to be straight, upright, and honest with yourself too, and everybody around you, and don't try to be something you're not, because people recognize it and they'll put you to the test. So I wouldn't worry about it. What I would worry about is that lifetime. You know, it's the same thing out here. You're going to have supervisors that, they're the shot callers, right? They're going to go to work and, like, wherever you work, they're going to make things happen smooth. They're going to respect you. They're going to ask you to do things where you don't feel like you're being bossed around, right? It leads to a lot more productivity. Then you're going to meet guys that are just a-holes, right? And they're going to be ordering you around, bossing you around, and you're going to be like, screw that. So it's the same thing in there, same thing out here. It's no different. So the choice is, are you going to go down that road that's going to take you to a place where you got to worry about your existence because of some guy who is or is not a decent shot caller? Or are you going to, what, paycheck till you find another job if you get an asshole, and a steady paying job if you get a decent supervisor? You can make the decision out here or you can make it in there. The only difference is in there, it could cost you your life. So think about it and think hard while you're doing it hard. Thanks a lot, folks. Take care.